My name is Claire Beaumont. I'm 44 years old. 2 years ago, I was stationed in Ramstein, Germany, working as a civilian contractor for the Department of Defense, when my mother called me at 6 in the morning my time. I remember looking at the clock on my nightstand, calculating the time difference, wondering why she would call it midnight her time instead of waiting. She didn't say hello. She said, "Claire, we need to talk about the house." I sat up. "What about the house?" "Your father and I have decided it makes more sense to leave it to Marcus. He's here. He's been helping us. You understand." I held the phone for a long moment. Through my window, the lights of the base flickered in the dark. "Mom," I said, "my name is already on the deed." The silence that followed told me she hadn't known that, or had hoped I'd forgotten, or had simply never believed I would say it out loud. Before I tell you what happened after that phone call, please like and subscribe, but only if this story is reaching something real in you. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love knowing you're out there. Let me take you all the way back, because that phone call was the end of something, not the beginning. Growing up in Shreveport, Louisiana, I learned early that being the older child and being the favored child are two entirely different things. I was the oldest by 6 years. Marcus came along when I was in first grade and immediately became the centerpiece of everything my parents did. My family, honestly described. Dad was a civil engineer, quiet and methodical, the kind of man who deferred to my mother on every domestic decision and called it harmony. Mom was sharp, social, and fiercely devoted to Marcus in a way she never tried to disguise or explain. Marcus was charming and funny and genuinely lovable in the way that youngest children sometimes are. I want to be fair to him. But he was also allowed to fail at things without consequence in a way I never was. I was the responsible one. The one with the plan. The one who figured things out. That was the box I was put in before I was old enough to question it. When I was 15, I made varsity debate and qualified for the state championship. It was a Saturday tournament, 2 hours away. My parents had promised to come. The morning of, my mother called me from the kitchen and told me they wouldn't make it. Marcus had a pee-wee football game that same afternoon and they couldn't miss it. His team lost. He cried. My parents took him to get ice cream and called it a hard lesson in sportsmanship. I won the tournament. I took the bus home. Nobody asked how it went. I told myself that was just how it was. I focused on school. At 22, I graduated from Louisiana State University with a degree in international relations and a government fellowship that would take me to Washington, D.C. for a 2-year placement. My parents came to graduation. My mother cried, which surprised me. Then on the drive home, she told me she was worried about who would help them around the house now that I was leaving. Not proud of me. Worried about the house. That same year, Marcus dropped out of community college after 1 semester. My parents paid off his $4,200 in student fees with no discussion of repayment, enrolled him in a trade certification program that cost another $3,000, and bought him a used truck so he could get to class. Total outlay that year? Just over $11,000. My fellowship paid a stipend of $24,000. I made it work because I had to. I told myself I was the lucky one. I had opportunities. I kept going. The pattern continued across the years the way patterns do, quietly, incrementally, in ways that were easy to rationalize one at a time. Marcus lived at home through his mid-20s. My parents covered his phone bill, his car insurance, his occasional credit card balances. When he got a girlfriend, they paid the deposit on their first apartment. When they broke up, he moved back home. The cycle repeated. Meanwhile, I built a career across a decade and a half of government contract work. D.C., then Seoul, then Brussels, then Ramstein. I sent money home when my parents had tight months. I paid for my mother's dental work one year when their insurance didn't cover it. $2,800 out of my pocket, no mention of paying it back. I bought my father a new laptop when his died because he used it for the medical billing software that managed his pension documents, and he was panicking. I asked for nothing in return. That was my choice and I own it. But I want you to understand the texture of those years, because it matters for what comes next. When I was 38, my parents called me. I was in Brussels at the time, and told me they were updating their estate documents. They wanted to add my name to the deed of the family home in Shreveport, the house I'd grown up in, as a co-owner. It was a gesture of inclusion, my mother said. It meant I was still part of things even from far away. I was moved by it. I remember thinking it was the most direct acknowledgement they'd ever made that I existed in their family as something other than a utility. I flew home that Christmas, signed the paperwork at their kitchen table with their estate attorney present, and flew back to Brussels feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt like a daughter. That feeling lasted almost 5 years. Then came the 6 a.m. phone call. After my mother said what she said, I told her I needed a few days. I didn't argue, didn't raise my voice. I had learned a long time ago that arguing with my mother on the phone from another continent was an exercise in helplessness. I needed information first. I contacted the Caddo Parish Assessor's Office online that same day and requested a copy of the current deed record. It arrived by email within 48 hours. My name was still on it. Claire Ann Beaumont, co-owner, recorded 2019. I sat with that document for a long time. And then I called my friend Josephine. Jo and I have known each other since our DC fellowship days. She went on to become a real estate attorney in Houston, and she is one of those people who gives you the truth without cushioning it because she respects you enough not to soften it. I sent her the deed. She called me back within an hour. "Claire," she said, "your mother cannot give that house to Marcus without your signature. You are a co-owner of record. Any transfer, sale, or title change requires your consent and your signature on the conveyance documents. What she told you on the phone is not legally possible without your cooperation." I asked her what she thought I should do. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I think you should stop cooperating with people who make plans about your property without telling you. I think you've been doing that your whole life in ways that have nothing to do with houses." I didn't answer right away because I was crying, and I was crying because she was exactly right. I flew home 3 weeks later. Not because I was summoned, because I chose to. My parents didn't know I was coming. I had arranged to stay with my cousin Denise, who lives 20 minutes from the family home and who has watched my family dynamics from the outside for 40 years, with the particular clarity that comes from being close enough to see everything, but far enough to stay out of it. Denise picked me up from the airport, and on the drive to her house she said, "I've been waiting for you to come back and say something for 15 years. That helped. I called my parents the morning after I arrived and asked if I could come over. My mother said of course. My father sounded relieved in a way that suggested he was not entirely comfortable with how things had been handled. Marcus was there when I arrived, which I had not expected but was not unprepared for. He was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, and he looked at me when I walked in with an expression I hadn't seen on his face before. Not defiance, something closer to embarrassment. I sat down. I had the deed printout in a folder. I had a one-page summary Jo had prepared outlining co-ownership rights in Louisiana property law. I had my own notes, written out the night before, because I knew if I tried to say everything from memory, my voice would shake and I would lose the thread. I put the folder on the table. "I know what you told me on the phone," I said to my mother. "I need you to understand that it isn't possible the way you've described it. My name is on this deed. I have been a co-owner of this house for 5 years. Nothing can be transferred without my agreement." My mother started to say something about intentions, and about what she and Dad had always planned, and about how Marcus had been here, and I had been gone. I let her finish. Then I said, "I've been gone because I built a career. I've been gone because you raised me to be self-sufficient, and I was. I've been sending money home from every country I've lived in. I paid for your dental work in 2017. I paid for Dad's laptop in 2020. I have never once asked you to account for what you've given Marcus, because I understood that he needed more help, and I was okay with that. But I am not okay with being written out of this family's property in a phone call at 6 in the morning, like I'm a tenant who forgot to pay rent." The kitchen was very quiet. My father said, "She's right, Patricia." It was the first time in my memory that he had said those words in a room where my mother was also sitting. Marcus put down his coffee cup. He looked at the table for a long moment. Then he looked at me and said, "I didn't ask them to do it. I want you to know that. I didn't know about the deed thing. I didn't know your name was on it." I believed him. I still believe him. Marcus has a lot of qualities that have frustrated me over the years, but deliberate scheming is not really one of them. He benefits from things without engineering them, which is its own kind of problem, but a different one. I know, I said to him. This isn't about you and me. My mother cried. She said she thought she was doing what was practical. She said she thought since I was overseas, I didn't really need the house. She said a lot of things that I think she believed were true in the way that people believe things that are convenient for them. I didn't argue with any of it. I had said what I came to say. What I told them, clearly and without room for interpretation, was this. I would not be signing any documents transferring my ownership share to Marcus or to anyone else. I was not doing this out of spite. I was doing this because that house represents the only concrete acknowledgement in 44 years that I am a full member of this family, and I was not going to sign that away on a phone call. If and when the time came to make decisions about the property, we would make them together, with an attorney present, like adults. My mother said she needed time to process that. I said I had been processing things from 6 time zones away for 15 years, so I understood completely. I stayed in Shreveport for 9 days. I had dinner with my parents twice. The conversations were careful and a little formal, but they were honest in a way our conversations hadn't been in years, maybe ever. My father told me, on the second dinner, that he was proud of the career I had built. It was a small sentence. It took him 69 years to say it. I accepted it for what it was. Joe drafted a co-ownership agreement that formalized decision-making rights for the property going forward. Nothing could be done with it without both parties in writing. My parents signed it. Marcus signed a separate acknowledgement that he had no ownership claim. It was clean and legal, and nobody liked it except Joe and me, and that was fine. That was 14 months ago. I am still in Ramstein. My contract runs through next year, and after that, I'm not sure where I'll land. I've been thinking about coming back to the States, maybe New Orleans, maybe somewhere entirely new. The house in Shreveport sits where it always has. My parents are getting older, and that is its own conversation that we will have when we need to have it, with honesty and legal documentation, and no more 6 a.m. phone calls that assume I won't push back. Marcus and I have texted a few times. Nothing heavy. He sent me a photo of his dog last month. I sent back a photo of the snow outside my window. It's not a close relationship, but it's a real one. And at this point in my life, I'll take real over close every time. My parents call more than they used to. My mother asks about my work now, not just my plans to come home. It's not a transformation. It's an adjustment, and an adjustment is enough. Here is what I want to say to you. If you are someone who has been the one who goes away, the one who builds something far from home and still somehow ends up listed as the backup plan, the safety net, the name on the paperwork nobody mentions until it's inconvenient. You are allowed to know what you own. You are allowed to read your own documents and understand your own rights and take up the space in your family that was always supposed to be yours. Going away is not the same as giving up your seat at the table. Distance is not consent. And if you have been sending money and signing forms and showing up across time zones for people who are making plans about your future without you, please hear me when I say this. The return flight is not an act of aggression. It's just coming home. It's just saying, I am still here, I have always been here, and I am not signing anything until we talk. If this story found you at the right moment, please like and subscribe, only if it genuinely meant something. Leave a comment. Tell me if you've ever been the one who left and was expected to disappear quietly. Tell me if you've ever gotten a phone call that accidentally told you the whole truth about how your family saw you. I want to hear from you. My name is Claire Beaumont. I'm 44 years old. My name is on the deed. It always was. And now everybody knows it.